There's not one right way to do it. There's room for everybody. You could be a food expert, you could be an adventure expert, and there's a space for you. You can create your own space.
Welcome to Travel Matters, the official podcast of TBEX. We will be sharing all the latest news, trends, and tips for you, and interviewing the movers and shakers in the travel creative ecosystem. Here are your hosts, the radio vagabond Palibo and TBEX CEO Rick Calvert. This is Travel Matters.
Welcome back to Travel Matters. My name is Palibo, and as always, I have Rick Calvert with me. And Rick, we're only 3 weeks away from TBEX Europe.
3 weeks.
Are you getting ready to pack your suitcase again?
We're ready to go right now. Suitcase is packed.
And you haven't figured out how to drive across the country and get on a boat to Spain?
I can't drive.
You're actually getting on a plane?
Yeah, I'm getting on a plane. I can't drive from here to Spain. I may do some driving when I get to Spain.
Yeah. Well, I'm already in Europe. I've been attending a conference for nomads in Croatia called Nomad Base. So a lot of other travelers, not so much travel content creators. There are a few in between, but a great group of people, and it's always nice to meet like-minded people, like it always is when I go to TBEX.
Absolutely. Yep. It's invaluable to get together with your peers and be with other people who are like you and understand your job and your life. There's just so many things you can learn from them.
Yeah, they get it. They get it.
Yeah.
And for me, I would say 50% of going to a TBEX is the networking and the people. Then obviously it's nice to learn a bunch of stuff because we can always learn stuff.
And meet with sponsors and make some money.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 3 more events coming up this year. So as you mentioned, we got TBEX Europe in Marbella, Spain, June 6th through 9. That's sponsored by Marbella, Costa del Sol, and Andalusia. Then TBEX North America Fall in Lafayette, October 12th through 14. And then TBEX Asia will be in Phuket, Thailand, November 15 through 18. So 3 more events coming up this year. And also, you can now get the virtual ticket for TBEX North America in Washington. So if you missed TBEX in Washington, you weren't able to get there.
Or missed some of the sessions like I did because I had to be in another room.
Or you couldn't be in 4 rooms at once.
Exactly.
You can get the virtual ticket. It's $99. It's all of the sessions, all of the keynotes, all the presentations that speakers gave during TBEX in Washington.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Let's jump into the first of 2 interviews we have in this episode, and the first one is with Traveling Jules. I went to a great session today. I'm obviously a podcaster. I don't do that much video, but I thought I'm sure there's going to be something I can pick up. And sure enough, I got all my notes here, and I took a bunch of notes from this session.
Let me see that. Hold on. Let me see that. Okay. So I saw you showed me these notes that you wrote, and I said, no, you didn't write that because that looks too good. That looks like a font that you typed. And here it is. Okay. JulianaBroste.com, Traveling Jules, the video hustle. And that's who we're talking to now. And Juliana, you liked it that he wrote his notes and it put all the pink in there.
I am so flattered that you carried my brand forward into a digital iPad.
Nobody's going to see this but me. But
I want to
obviously
frame
not.
It's really, really well done. And it's like amazing. You have all these great notes and they're really honest of what happened. That's great. And I love pink, so thank you.
Yeah. Now, you do some amazing videos, and you really do great work, and you're so authentic and always smiling in your videos, so I'm really a big fan.
Thank you.
And there was so much good stuff that you shared in the session that even a podcaster like me, who's a face from a radio, can use.
No, there's good stuff, yeah, for everybody who's interested in tech, right? We can all cross over and the microphones, the picture, like all of it's, we're all one, right?
Yeah, no, and also just the way that you approach a scene when you're recording, I can, in my mind, transfer that to what should I do when I start recording an episode of my podcast, because I do that on location as well. So a lot of good stuff like stop and observe and create action and all of that. I can make that into a podcast as well.
Yeah, I mean, the create action, I think of that like, you know, whether that's lifting up a drink and putting it down, you still hear the sound. Those natural sounds of, you know, the car starting, chug, 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 or, you know, just when I do
opening
transition.
a can or twisting off a bottle and hearing the
Yes, totally. And even when I transition from one shot to another with a fun, like, you know, there's this little sound effect or a ding. So, yeah, you can have a lot of fun with audio, whether it's for video or for podcast.
What an awesome tip.
Exactly.
I didn't get to sit in your session. That's why we video the sessions for me, so I can watch them afterwards.
Yeah, you're going to be back in Temecula binge watching the whole thing.
Yes, yeah, I'm going to binge watch that is a really awesome tip that I never even thought about.
I mean, people, we don't mean to be lazy, but we see what we see and we shoot it, you know, for video. And then you're like, I don't know why that it didn't move me. There's nothing special about it. And it's because there's no action. If you just shoot the thing the way it is, it's just like wah wah. But if you can see it enter the frame or exit, you know, the action of a car arriving and like driving away, that's so much more fun, right?
Totally.
But do you only do YouTube videos? Are you embracing TikTok as well?
Oh, yeah, I'm trying everything. I think we are, as a one-woman show who already is a producer, shooter, writer, editor, and host, it's pretty hard to also be a YouTuber, an Instagrammer, a TikToker.
There's so much.
You know, a broadcast TV person, a freelancer. There's so many different ways to be. And that's what I love about this field, is we can stretch and be in different fields and different formats at different times. But I love knowing the language of TikTok. But I'd have to say, I don't think my brain like wakes up and thinks in TikTok.
No.
I think it's a skill that I think some people are born using because they wake up looking at TikTok all day. And for me, I much more enjoy like a longer format, even one whole minute, or even 5 minutes or 8 minutes. I think you can tell a very different story than the 30-second thing, right?
Yeah, but tell us a little bit about Traveling Jules, the YouTube channel. What kind of stuff do you do? How long are your videos? Where do you go? Do you focus on one thing?
How long ago did you get started?
Yeah.
Just add 10 more questions.
We'll just sit back and...
How long do we have? No. You know, it's funny because I've been doing this a long time, and I think TBEX Toronto really kicked off the beginning of my Traveling Jules days, where I really got to meet other travel vlogger creators and build a community of friends. And we've been watching each other year after year, and to see each other now, we're in a totally different place.
It's pretty crazy, exciting. Right? How much it's grown since then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when I think of myself back in the early days, you know, I was in 4th grade when I was in a TV commercial for The Neighbor.
Really?
Yeah. And I fell in love with this business from an early age. And I followed through in high school and college. I did an internship at the local TV station, and there was something that I realized about working in the local news, that it wasn't for me. Like, I just don't really love politics and the serious stuff. I wanted to do features and adventures, and I was so grateful when I found travel as a way to express the fun in life.
But you saw... It must have been a good experience, and you saw some of the technical skills that you needed to be a good video creator.
Yeah, storytelling from any format it's a language, and you have to learn the basics and the technical to be able to, you know, express yourself in whatever format that is. So.
That's right, having the tools to express yourself.
Yeah.
So 2013 is when it kind of got started. When did it really take off, when you're like, wow, this is maybe bigger than you expected, or this is what I dreamed of?
You know, a lot of freelancers and independents and entrepreneurs, we feel really successful when we can really make a living doing what we love to do. And I would say for me, when I finally made that like chunk of money where I didn't have to do the boring projects, you know, take on that school video or corporate video, and instead say, no thanks, I'm going to go on this trip to so-and-so, then you realize, like, I think I've made it. So that's a good feeling.
So I was almost about to say, growing up as a YouTuber, who were you inspired by? Where were the inspiration for travel videos that you learned
Yeah,
from?
like who did you see and say, I want to be like that person?
You know, when I started, it was called a multimedia journalist or video journalist, and there were very few people who were starting to carve their own path before YouTube. One of them is a friend of mine, Ryan Van Duzer. He actually went to my school, but we didn't know each other in college.
Oh, that's funny.
Some people were like, you need to meet this guy, Ryan Van Duzer. And when I met him, I'm like, you are doing what I want to do. And just to know one other person gives you that feeling like, oh, it's possible. I could do it. If you can do it, I can do it. And even to this day, like, we're still friends, and we inspire each other to tell stories. But it's just nice to have those long-term relationships where you see each other working so hard, and you deserve everything that you've earned because, you've been putting in the legwork.
And I feel this is also an industry where we're not afraid to share tips with each other, and we don't see each other as competitors.
No. Yeah, I think when I was, there was a show on Travel Channel called 5 Takes, where I remember like applying, thinking like, this is, they were looking for 5 different personalities to experience one city. And one person was the foodie, and one person was the adventure person, and it was just such a neat way to say there's not one right way to do it. There's room for everybody. So even here in the blogging space, you could be a food expert, you could be an adventure expert, and there's a space for you. You can create your own space.
So many different things you can do, and I'll give one of the extreme examples I know of is our friend Jason, who does videos, and he gets like 500,000 views of him getting a shave. He grows his beard and he gets a shave, and he grows his beard and he gets a shave.
Gets pampered.
Yeah, and he does videos about that, or getting his hair cut. He's the only one I know who does that.
Yeah, and he's got 500,000 subscribers to his channel,
Yeah.
so it's amazing.
Woo!
Yeah.
He's like, man, would the hair grow any faster, right?
You get your shave all over the world, right? And so that's a really weird thing. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about your session today.
Yeah.
So obviously, 2 things I heard you say now. One is bring the object into the frame, right, from outside the frame. Again, I never thought about that. I'm a total video newbie, by the way, so you really helped my game right now. And number 2, let's hear that sound effect, the car driving off, opening the bottle, all of those things. What are some of the other tips you gave people today?
My favorite tip is it was the first one, because I just really wanted to let people know that you can create your own opportunities, to position yourself as, the thing, like the superhero you want to be. It's they say that fake it till you make it. Well, what if you just make it before you get there? Like, envision what you want to be and make that. So if I want to be a travel expert in the adventure outdoors space, I'm going to only show you adventures and outdoors content. And yeah, even if I do a food video or whatever other thing, maybe I just don't tell you about that. That's like a secret chamber, and really just like build a brand around the thing that you want and just only show that.
So do you people always say niche down. Do you focus on one thing? Because in my podcast, I like to do a lot of different stuff. I'm going on hikes. I occasionally have a meal. I talk about all kinds of stuff. I don't focus on one thing. Do you think that's a mistake?
No, I think from a humanistic branding standpoint, it's very smart. What I say is you want to be sticky. You want to have one thing that people remember you for. So if people think Jules pink, awesome, you did the right thing. Or if they think Jules crazy girl with the heavy backpack and all the cameras, awesome. That's good because you remember me. And then the next thing is maybe then I tell you that all the other cool random things, like I'm a snowboard instructor and I also teach video stuff or whatever those other. But if I start out with all that stuff, you forget everything.
Yeah, and then you were selected to do a project for Bumble, the dating app. That must have been quite a thing when you got selected for that.
Oh my gosh, that was like my. You think of all the things, experiences you've done in your career, and when they all kind of lead to the same place, that's how it felt. Like I was built to do this job, making connections with people around the world, making friends. It's not just a dating app. We made friends, we made business connections and dates. I was also like, oh, maybe I'll meet someone special.
So it's a connecting app.
Did you go on a good date?
Yeah. I went on a few good dates, yeah. We went to 3 countries to go on dates, and then the world had to go on pause for a little while, but it was nice that we got to go.
You were telling me this yesterday. They were going to send you around the world for a year.
They did until we had to pause, but it was like the dream job.
That's
Getting
pretty awesome.
Paid, travel the world, tell stories, right? Like hopefully meet the love of your life, all of the things. I'm not making this up. So.
No.
So I'm curious. So you have some trademarks. The girl in pink with all the pink stuff. The girl with the heavy backpack and all the cameras. Did those things happen intentionally, by accident, a little bit of both? Do you think about that stuff and say, you know what? I don't have anything pink on right now. I need to get some pink. I mean...
Yeah, I think there's a level of that's just the things that I love, like my whole life. My mom remembers when I was little, and she like I would always pick the sparkling thing, the sparkle shoes, sparkle belts, and stuff. And that's just like I've always liked things that are pretty or whatever, girly. And I think on some level we do that on purpose because we want people to remember something, but also it's just that's what I like. So, I mean, naturally, if you give me a choice of cupcakes, guess which one?
The sparkly one.
The pink one.
Yeah, the pink one and the one with sparkles. Pink sparkles, even
pink
better.
Sparkles, even better.
Yeah,
yeah. But
good.
The backpack one, that wasn't probably the smartest move because it is a heavy backpack. It's like I don't really want to carry that around. But I do, as a traveler, I like to be prepared for anything. And don't you feel bad when you just don't have the thing that you want or you need it or, you like? And so I love to be ready for anything, and for me that means having the tools that I need to be creative.
Yeah, and if you check my notes here, I put a star with the brand name of the backpack because I'm going to research that because I want that.
So I have a question. Pale said something, it made a little joke when we started. He said, he has a face made for radio.
Not true, but a great joke.
But my question is, do you really have to be... Because if you look at newscasters, for example, they're always good-looking people, right? The guys all have square jaws. The women are all very slim. Do you have to do that to be a successful video creator? Or can you really just be anybody and just be yourself?
I think the world has really changed. I think there was a time where models had to be a certain height and you had to look a certain way. And that's what's nice about today. Is we're accepting and open and bringing in as much diversity as we can. We're trying to. We're aware of it. And it will take time to really change everything. But I think it's nice that we have our eyes open now to say, hey, that would be weird if we had a panel all full of guys. Like, what could we do about that, right? So I think we're just in a great time where we're embracing the idea of being you and try not to be that standard or, stereotype, kind of like shape and form because we want more options than that, which I love.
I think you're totally right, and I think we're in a space and time where it's more authenticity, right? We appreciate seeing other people who look like us, right? Who look like normal people. So anyway.
Well, I think on top of that, it's like the technology has changed. Because there was a time where, only so many people had the skill set to tell stories with video, and then we only needed one host, and, there was a limited number of opportunities. And now, because we have phones, we have so many types of cameras, we have a lot of, platforms to post to, it's now, we have space for more people, which is awesome. Why not? Let's hear your story about your life in another country, or let's hear your story about growing up with grandma. There's, so much more space and opportunity for everybody now.
So that's another thing. How easy is it to be a video creator now? Again, part of the gateway to entry to do video before was it was super expensive and super technical.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I want to really value and honor people like me who have spent their whole lives doing something that they love and that is definitely a skill set, like a language, right? But I also want to recognize the new people who take a chance and say, I love this phone. What do I do with it? And how do I tell a story with it? And I think there's a democracy within the language of video, which we can all embrace. And it's like you can be Spanish 101 or Spanish 301 or, fully fluent. So with video, you could be intro, beginner, super advanced, but I think there's a place for everybody now with social media, and then we have the professional broadcasters, and there's lots of space in between to sort of kind of run along that continuum.
But have the tools made it easier to make really good video, or is it just new tools, but you still got to be...
Oh, yeah. My first set of camera gear as a one-woman show, it was like $10,000 to buy the tripod, the camera, this editing software, the computer. Now you can essentially do the same things with a phone. However, there's a reason why professionals would still spend the $10,000 because you get all this custom control and 4K and all kinds of amazing stuff. But there's a place for all of it now.
And you can work your way up to that level.
Yeah. What I think is you shouldn't let the technology stop you from telling a story. I've heard a lot of friends say, oh, I would start a YouTube channel, but I need to get the newest camera. And it's like, no, you don't need to wait until that day. Why don't you start telling stories now?
Exactly, and that's what we say in podcasting. Just use the best microphone you can afford.
Yeah.
And start from there.
Yeah.
And phone can do so much with video. It can bring some authenticity into it as well.
Yeah, it's a nice place to start, but so don't let the technology hold you back. But for those people who are serious, who want to invest in their career, I mean, I love shooting with the highest quality everything because I'm still using and enjoying content I shot 10 years ago because at that time I used the best that existed, and it's still very relevant and it's still a good quality for now. So it's that kind of archival safekeeping of utilizing the best that we have now that will save you for the future of having those documents and archives for later.
Juliana, Traveling Jules, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving a great talk today, and we really appreciate you being with us.
And it's Traveling Jules on YouTube. It's travelingjules.com, and you also have the videohustle.com.
Thanks for joining me in the Video Hustle.
By the way, the Video Hustle is your video course, right, where you teach folks how to make better video.
Yeah, it's my website that's dedicated to creators. So if you ever ask me, hey, what kind of backpack do you have? It's on there. All the things that I love and a lot of the reviews that I do, I work with a lot of brands. So the things that I really have experience with, I put over on the Video Hustle. And then all my travel adventures and experiences in different cities and countries, that would be Traveling Jules.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. This was so fun.
No, Rick, Traveling Jules, she just does some amazing stuff and such a bubbly person.
Yeah. She's very, very good at what she does, and she's a good teacher.
Absolutely.
Her sessions are always some of the highest rated at the show, so yeah, it was great to spend some time with her.
Yeah. In a previous episode, we spoke to Tamiko about SEO, and I said to her, "But
why it's important?"
Yeah, and isn't it boring? And she said, "No." So after we had that talk, I thought, okay, I better listen to her because she's smart. And there was a session about SEO and how you do things and good tips on how you can improve your blog and your platform. So I went to a session with TaKenya Hampton.
You're listening to Travel Matters, the official podcast of TBEX.
TaKenya Hampton is joining us on the podcast. And TaKenya, you're talking about WordPress. And, the gist of the title is how to take care of the back end of your WordPress site.
Right.
So the front end looks good.
Well, not even just so the front end looks good, so that your website, if that's your tool that you're using to make money, you want to do the regular maintenance. And I was using the analogy of like in the same way that you need to change your oil in your car, you need to rotate your tires, you need to go and have like that regular maintenance done. WordPress is a very robust tool. And sometimes people can be intimidated by it. So when you see like the little things warning you like to update your plugins or things like that, it's like, oh, I don't know what to do, so I won't touch it. But you set yourself up to be vulnerable to potential like spamming and attacks and things like that because plugin updates are there to minimize the vulnerabilities. So just kind of talking about some of those things. It's not even just about the beauty of the website. It's about the maintenance of it. Like you can drive a nice car that has no oil in it and will leave you stranded on the side of the road.
Down,
yes. Yeah. Like when I drive past and see like a BMW broke down on the side of the road, it's like, what happened there? But it's somebody who's probably not maintaining their car. And with this being what you use as your tool to make income, like especially if you're running ads or sponsored content and things like that, you're losing money if your site goes down.
So updating your plugins, that's a good one, an obvious one. Mm-hmm. What are some of the other maintenance things that we might tend to ignore that we shouldn't?
So one of the things that I mentioned in my session was like just having general knowledge about the things that you're hiring out. You know how they say, like, again, staying with the car analogy, if I take my car in to get maintenance, a guy might assume that I don't know certain things about my rotors or my brake pads, and they might try and tell me I need all of this extra stuff that I don't actually need.
Oh, that's happened to me.
Right. So you're surprised when you try and tell me, like, that I need brake pads, rotors, and, you know, whatever else. And I'm like, oh, but I don't because I know this, this, and this. So I can pay you to do the thing. I can't do it, but I'm at least knowledgeable enough about it so that you can't take advantage of me. So those are some of the things that I was talking about too, is just like having general knowledge. Like, first of all, Google University will give you a lot of, if you just do a simple Google search to get a general understanding, a high-level understanding of what you're paying somebody to do so that you can kind of speak to it and they can't take advantage of you. But then also, like, when you give people access to your site, removing access when they don't need it anymore or making sure that you're giving the right level of access. Somebody who is just like editing images for you or editing content for you does not need administrative level rights to your site. I was telling them that, like, I've seen where people give the person who set their site up for them, they have admin access, and then that person gave them just like editor access. So it's your site, but you don't even have administrative level access. And if I disappear, you can't go in and access some of the functionality of your site. So just general things like that we don't tend to think about, or that gets overlooked as like not a big deal, and until it is a big deal kind of thing.
Yeah. I know that I am by no means an expert on my WordPress, but I do it. And I know that I probably have a lot of plugins that I don't really need. Is it okay for me to keep them there, or should I go and clean up the ones that I don't need?
So that's actually something that I talked about as well. It's like doing an occasional audit of the plugins that you have on your site. One of the examples that I used was dual functionality. So sometimes there's a plugin that you just don't use anymore because it's like, oh, I don't need that, or I don't do that in my workflow anymore. Well, delete the plugin. Everything that's there is taking up space. It's also like, even if it's minimal impact, it can be impacting your site speed, which then impacts your Google ranking, which then impacts your dollars. You know what I mean? Your
traffic and your dollars.
All of that. Yeah. Exactly. And so when you have two plugins that do the exact same thing, figure out which one is your favorite and get rid of the other one. There is no need to have two plugins that do the same thing and then they end up conflicting with each other. True. And again, can end up shutting your site down because there's a conflict. So, and that's the thing, because WordPress has so much that you can do. It's easy to be like, oh, I can install this plugin, no big deal, activate, and then you're like, oh crap, I probably shouldn't have done that.
But are there like 3 plugins that everybody should have?
3 plugins that everyone should have. Everybody's site is so different. I would say an SEO plugin, absolutely. But even with that, like
what, for example?
I personally love Yoast.
Yeah,
I've tested and played with some of the other ones, and I just love the functionality of Yoast, and they keep it updated so regularly so that it integrates with other plugins and it's reading the content in places that other plugins aren't. But even with that, like someone said in their session, like, remember that Yoast is just a checklist. So we'll be going for like, I got to get the green light. But sometimes you have to use situational judgment and be okay with the orange light. It means that you hit most of the things. But it is not like, oh, if you have that green light, you're absolutely going to rank. It's just like, did you do these things? And so you have to also understand like what the purpose of the plugins are that you're using.
True.
So I would definitely say like an SEO plugin. I was talking about Askamet. I really like that plugin for getting spam out the way, so you don't have all of those spam comments coming through and you have to manually go and trash those. That's one plugin that I always install. And
what about a plugin to manage images? We use one called Smush, which compresses our image files because we've got tons of images on our site, and I'm sure a lot of our attendees have way more images than we do.
Yeah. So I've heard different opinions on that. I actually use one. I use Smush, but Smush took down one of my sites at one point. So I started using Imagify. I really like that one. But then there's also, like, if you do some of those things in the beginning, like taking your images and resizing them and bringing them down to a decent size, you can minimize the use of plugins. So there's different schools of thought on that. There are the people who will say, like, have as least amount of plugins as possible. So if you can eliminate the plugin and just do it, say, like in Photoshop in pre-editing, then you can kind of get rid of that. But for someone who's not proficient in Photoshop, absolutely just get a plugin that works for you and that you can use and that has good ratings and reviews. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, TaKenya, thank you for joining us. That's really...
Thank you so much for having me.
A couple of very helpful tips.
So much wisdom.
Yeah.
Can I just have your brain in my head sometimes? Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's been great being here. This is my first TBEX conference. It will not be my last. It was just great.
Now that you opened that door, I have to ask you, what did you think of TBEX as your first one?
You know, I was kind of feeling like, well, I'm not really a travel content creator, so I don't know that I really necessarily belong here. And then when I looked at this schedule, the things that were on there is, I understand that this is where travel bloggers are coming, but all of this information is relevant to whatever kind of blogger that you are. Some of it is more geared specifically towards travel bloggers, but then even one of the things that I love is looking and talking to other travel content creators and their workflows and things that they are doing and how that crosses over into my food and DIY site and then also my coaching business site. Like it expanded my mind on thinking how I can do things or even the types of processes, because that's something that I do as well, that I can help travel content creators come up with, because I'm all about automating things. Like, we're solopreneurs. You can't do everything. So automation is a big part of what I do too. So
excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you, TaKenya. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. My first conference since the pandemic too.
Yay! Welcome to the community.
Right. Well, thank you guys. Thank
you. We really enjoyed talking to TaKenya there at the show, and then after, she was on your fam trip to Seattle Southside and Bellevue, right?
She was, yeah. And we got to be very good friends. One thing that people should know about TaKenya, she's always cold. She was always on the bus, and Christopher was lending his jacket to her all the time. So she's a warm person, but she's always cold.
So I'm sure Chris was warming up the bus with, talking so much all the time, right? Because you can't shut Chris up.
That is so true. But we're trying to shut him up in the next episode, actually, because he and Jeremy Jones are their guest on next week's episode of Travel Matters, and both of them have a lot to share, right?
Talking about This Week in Blogging, their subscription newsletter. Chris has this great Rick Steves story, and you'll hear Jeremy telling Chris to shut up more than once, but that's great.
Yeah, and the two of them, they're kind of like an old married couple.
An old married couple, exactly. good friends, and they were great to have on the podcast.
Yes. So we have them on next week's episode, but then we also have probably the guy that flew in the longest to get to TBEX Tri-Cities, Engin
Caban. I love Engin. He is a great guy. Just so nice, so humble. Again, he's been, doing his travel blog for many, many, many years. Flew all the way from Turkey to come to Tri-Cities. And he's actually going to be in Europe as well at Marbella. So we got a chance to catch up with Engine.
Yeah. So that's it for this episode. Remember to share Travel Matters with your friends who might find this podcast interesting. And see you next week.
Thanks, Pally. See you next week.
You've been listening to Travel Matters, the official podcast of TBEX. This episode of Travel Matters was hosted by TBEX CEO Rick Calvert and Radio Vagabond Palabo and produced by radioguru.co.uk. See more about upcoming TBEX events on tbexcon.com. You can follow Palabo on theradiovagabond.com.